Welcome to MBA Mental Boost. This is your coach, Dr. Rosie, and today we are talking about focus and its link with flow state and being in the zone. So, first of all, let's define what I'm talking about. When you think about focus, this is your ability to direct and sustain attention on a specific task. It's that mental spotlight that helps you block out distractions and really hone in on what matters. I believe that focus is the difference between making a clutch play or missing it. It really is this important, and yet so many athletes aren't training it on a daily basis. Just like with all of my tools, training focus gets to be simple. It really does. I like to look at low-hanging fruit, so the easy wins. I really feel that training focus is one of those low-hanging fruits that can really help to elevate your performance if you know how to work with it and if you are consistent in your approach. Now let's talk about flow and its link with focus. So if you listen to my podcast, the last few episodes, I've been talking about a flow state. It's something I am really, really passionate about. But if you haven't, and if you're new to this, then here's a brief introduction. So flow is often called being in the zone. They're one and the same, exactly the same thing. It's just in a sports context, we tend to talk about being in the zone. It's that mental state where everything clicks. You're fully immersed. You feel a sense of ease. Time can either slow down, but it could also speed up. It's subjective. And your performance is at its peak. So that's the thing, is we're performing at the height of our performance and it all feels like things are flowing, like things at ease, like you can read the game. You clients often say, like, I feel like I know what's about to happen, like I just feel it. But the thing is, flow doesn't just happen by accident. So clients will often say it's something that happens once in a blue moon, or correction, they say this when we start working on flow. Once they understand how to train the flow state, and we've done this work and they've seen it in action, they know they can step into it on demand. It stops being this mythical, once in a blue moon it happens. I was telling a client about this the other day and he was like, holy fuck, like I can train this? And I'm like, yes, like 100% you can train this. And I wonder, as you're hearing me talk about this, whether you're having a similar holy fuck moment, or maybe you're thinking, nah, this is total BS. Understandable if you're in the latter, because the zone is often talked about like this mythical state. You know, I was talking to a friend yesterday about it and she was like, well, you know, I've heard about being in flow and it just sounds like some kind of woo-woo, like hippie magic, like kind of it's somewhere out there and it, you know, happens every so often. And I'm like, no, you can train it. I mean, I am quite a woo person, but this is grounded in science. It's grounded in neuroscience and psychology. So you've got the two interdisciplinary areas that say that, no, this is it's a state that you can totally train your brain to get into. Now, one of the key ingredients to entering flow is focused attention. Without a high level of focus, it's almost impossible to reach that state where your skills and challenges align perfectly. That is the flow state. Skills meet challenge. Focus is like the gateway to flow. If you can control and sustain your attention, you're literally priming your brain to enter that heightened state of performance. Now, I'm going to borrow a line from one of my clients in our session this week. He was like, I was telling him all about this. And he was like, okay, Rosie, you've sold me on the idea, but how can I train it? And his brain kept jumping to, okay, but how? Your brain is probably thinking the same. So I'm just offering to you, I'm coming onto the how. But let me just geek out for a little more because I want you to understand why we do this first. Because if you don't understand why, you're less likely to be committed to doing the how and the wheels are going to fall off. Now, the science behind focus and flow is fascinating. Focus engages the prefrontal cortex. So it's a part of your brain that's responsible for decision making, for problem solving, for concentration and controlling impulses. When you're focused, your brain waves shift into a more active state. So they're called beta waves. And they're necessary for attention. But too much beta wave activity can cause anxiety. So when we're overthinking, when we're kind of feeling too stimulated, we're in our head and that pulls you out of flow. That's like 100% a flow blocker. When you're in flow, the brain shifts from this beta to alpha waves. Now, alpha waves are more associated with relaxation, creativity, and a sense of calm focus. We often get into alpha when we're meditating. In flow, the prefrontal cortex quietens down, so the activity in it is diminished. And that allows you to stop overthinking and just act. So what I often say is that you've put in the physical training, and then when we can work with our brain, we can calm down the prefrontal cortex. Now you can actually play to your training. So that starts to become autopilot. You're not having to think. If you're thinking, then you're too much in your head, and you know that the prefrontal cortex is activated. So when you can just be and you could just act and you're in the moment, this balance of kind of calm and focus is why flow feels so effortless, because you're literally not thinking, you're doing, you're being rather than thinking. Now, training focus is like building a bridge between these states. So you need to learn how to activate your attention on demand, so you get into that beta wave, but also know when to release some of that control to ease into the flow. And you have to train this. Me telling you the why and the how, it's going to mean nothing unless you put in the work, unless you're consistent with it. It's also not going to happen when you do this just once. It has to be consistent effort, just like you get the physical reps in. So let's come to what you wanted. Let's get practical. How can you train focus to help you reach flow state more often? Here are 3 techniques that I'm going to share with you. There are lots of different ones, but I want to keep it simple. First of all, mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness is all about being present. It trains your brain to focus on one thing at a time, usually your breath or a specific body sensation. And by meditating regularly, even for just like 10 minutes a day, you're strengthening that focus muscle. You'll be better at staying locked in during games or practices. And study shows that practicing mindfulness improves both sustained attention and task switching ability, which is key for you when you're transitioning, between plays. So practicing meditation. The other one is single tasking. In a world where we're obsessed with multitasking, one of the best things you can do for your focus is single tasking. This is all about giving your full attention to one thing at a time. So whether you're watching film, running drills, doing strength training, but also off the court, if you're having a conversation with someone, make it a point to focus solely on that activity. Over time, you'll increase your ability to sustain focus, and that translates directly to the court. And then lastly, focus intervals. So much like physical endurance, mental endurance can be built over time. Start by working in focused intervals. This could be something like 25 minutes of focused activity, followed by a 5-minute break. The goal is to gradually extend these intervals. This is called the Pomodoro technique. If you're a client of mine or you've heard me talk, I talk about Pomodoro technique a lot. It's how I work. And it helps to train your brain to concentrate for longer periods of time without burning out. This technique is especially useful when analysing film. So those are the 3 techniques that you can then work on to train your focus. By training your brain to concentrate better, you're setting yourself up to enter that peak performance state more often. This is where you can train the zone on demand. Try incorporating mindfulness, single tasking, and focus intervals into your routine. Just like you train your body, training your mind will elevate your performance. Like I can 100% guarantee it. Remember that flow is a skill that can be cultivated. The more that you train your focus, the easier it will be to get into the zone when it matters most. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of NBA Mental Boost, the secret weapon to supercharging your performance on the court. If you found today's episode useful, don't forget to subscribe and share. You can connect with me over on any social platform. You can find me at Dr. Rosie Mead. Until next time, go out there and dominate using the power of your mind. This is Dr. Rosie, signing off.